And welcome to Two Gray Goatees and a Whistle. I am joined today by somebody very special, has a special place in my heart, and for very good reason. I'm fortunate to get to talk to my nephew. This is Jeff Walker. Say hi, Jeff.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
So, yeah, so I got Jeff on here, and so we grew up calling him Jeffrey. He is his full name, but Jeff is has a very really good story. I want him to be able to share. I know some of this. You can blame your mom on this. She kind of threw the idea out there too, by the way.
Yeah, that's
So
what I figured.
so, but I think there's a story here, and I think some of the things we've been talking about lately has been like injury and injury prevention. I had Andrew Card on here, somebody that is currently playing sports, playing at a pro level in football. And so it kind of told me, the routine and work and stuff like that. And the last episode, me and Amanda were talking about, specialized sports and in how that can create more injuries versus somebody who
Mhm.
plays multi-sports. And so you have unique because you've experienced injuries, but you've also have a story about coming on the other side of this. And so I kind of want you to share it. You've been to school. I'm sure you have some wisdom on
Mhm.
and getting your body right and all that stuff. And because you went on and you did do some did some activities, did sport in college. So I want you to be able to share that. And so we're gonna kind of talk about that and how you got started. So we're gonna go back to when you started back in the day when you started playing sports. So kind of give us an idea growing up, what were some of the sports you were playing? You could go as far back to the, well, as young as you want and just kind of give
Okay.
us a broad what you did. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I think my first sport that I started doing was soccer, and I think I was probably geez, let me think. How old was I? Probably 5 was probably the first time I was getting into sports, and then pretty much did soccer, flag football. Kind of once I got old enough, started doing basketball in 5th grade. And then actually before that, I did some wrestling too. So I did wrestling up until 4th grade, and I think I started that around 1st grade as well. And then from there, we went, let's see, so pretty much played basketball, football, track. Stopped doing track in 8th grade as well as soccer because at the school I went to at the time, we didn't have soccer. So yeah, football and basketball were pretty much the two main sports. Kind of dabbled in some like racing motocross a little bit too. I did that for pretty much up until my junior year of high school. And then kind of once my first injuries kind of became an issue was 5th grade. I was a pretty long, lanky kid and didn't have a lot of muscle on my body. And I was in basketball practice and someone came down on my shoulder, dislocated my shoulder. And so that was kind of the road of dealing with shoulder issues. And so from that point on, I pretty much dealt with my shoulder. I could just pull on it and then it would dislocate. And so it was super loose. And so the doctor didn't really want to do surgery at the time because a lot of the bone or tissue in there was still cartilage and wasn't fully developed yet. So we waited and delayed it. And then my sophomore year of football, I got thrown down from a tackle, dislocated it, and the doctor finally wanted to do surgery. So that was kind of when my first surgery began at that point. And then let's see, kind of next one. And that's kind of when my developmental journey of kind of developing muscle and kind of wanting to improve those areas and not just focus on sport as much. And so I kind of dove into that super heavily. My aunt was kind of the one that influenced me there and kind of showed me the gym and how to use the equipment. And then I actually stopped playing sports my senior year to work. And so I was working most of my senior year to save up money for school. And then once I got to school, I tried out for the University of Oregon stunt team, got on there. And then so I did that for 2 years in college. And then let's see, after that, my next injury was I was actually in jujitsu and I was rolling
I heard
around in
about this.
jujitsu. Yep. And I was just kind of pushing off a guy and dislocated my right shoulder this time. So my opposite shoulder or my labrum. And so I had to have surgery again and went through that whole process all over. And so that through that has just taught me a lot, kind of how to take care of myself. And then I kind of fully dove into running after that because I was like, all right, I just need to kind of take a break maybe from kind of doing that stuff. And once I got into running, I was, let's see, it was after my second marathon, I was having like super bad issues with my right hip. Like every time I'd sit down, I'd get kind of this excruciating pain. And it was just not fun to deal with. And so I finally went into the doctor about it. And I had a torn labrum in my hip. And so I got that fixed as well. And then, yeah, those were kind of pretty much the three big joint injuries that I've had. I've had some hernia surgeries too from uh, being on the stunt team because it's such a like we're lifting a lot of weight, especially and just kind of, we're throwing people up in the air and catching them. And then obviously the weights on the side too. We were just a lot of activity, especially in the core. And so I had one point where I could just push in like above my belly button. I could push in I guess it was your gut. It'd kind of like pop out. And so I'd push it back in and it
Oh
was
wow.
super weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was
Okay.
kind of the journey. Yeah. Of the
Wow.
injuries.
So, geez, that's crazy. So we'll reel it back a little bit. You know, going through sports, just how you started out. You played different positions in basketball and
Hmm.
through high school, and then football. You mainly played quarterback. You actually went to state, right? You went actually to semifinals, right? All the way.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that
We
your
made it.
freshman or sophomore year? Was that your freshman year?
It was my freshman year. Yeah, yeah, freshman year. We had a really good team. We had some amazing running backs, and those guys pretty
Yeah.
much carried us the whole way. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a
And
fun year.
yeah. Want to talk about how that happened? Who'd you end up losing to?
I'm trying. It was some team on the West Coast because like we play all these teams on the east side of Oregon, and as soon as we play teams on the west side, we just get smashed. And so I don't. It was some small school because we were 1A at the time. No, we were 2A, so we were 11
You were
man.
11 man. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
you.
we were.
I know where you went to high school is bounced around from 11 man, and then it's been eight man for
Mhm.
a certain amount. It's past while now, but I know you're
Yeah,
kind of that transition. When you're there. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Was it Toledo? Does that sound right? Or did you
No, we beat Toledo in
so you beat
preseason that
Toledo?
year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we beat
That's
Toledo.
preseason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to think. I want to say at Forest something.
Yeah. And I want to say the guy who was coaching at Toledo at the time, I think is the current coach here in Gooding now.
Crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think it's who I think it is because I know he did coach at Toledo around the same time I think you were there. Or when
Nice.
you played him, I think, and I would have to double check that. But anyways, I know part of his coaching journey was at Toledo for a short time.
Yeah. Crazy coincidence. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So other things you did, like you said, I remember you doing some soccer when you were younger. Track. It seemed like that was. Did you do that? How long did you do track for? Was that did you do that through your senior year or just through your sophomore, junior year?
No, no. I stopped actually eighth grade is when I stopped
Eighth
doing
grade?
track. I don't, I just didn't like, I didn't really like the training at the time for it. And out in Embler at the time, we had a dirt track. And so it was just not, I don't know. And I didn't really like fall into loving running yet at that point. And so I was like, it's not wasn't stimulating enough for me. I didn't get like any running high or anything from it. So I was like, I
Right.
don't know.
It's just
I'd
something
rather
to
do
run.
something else in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when what was some of the things that you enjoyed? What was kind of your mindset before you kind of or what was your mindset maybe in high school or middle school at the time? What was some of the things
Dude,
that you were,
in the sixth grade, I wrote myself like, those letters you open when you graduate high school or whatever. And I wrote, I think in it, play college football either at Boise State or Oregon. And
okay?
so that was kind of my mindset at the time as I was like, I'm going to go and play college sports. And that's where my focus was. Mainly football. Football was kind of the thing I cared about most. Basketball was just something I did with my friends. But yeah, football was because I did AAU basketball. So we traveled all over from fifth grade up until eighth grade. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And, we can say that you got close. So close as you can get without playing.
I got
So
close on yeah, exactly.
let's talk about that. So you didn't do any cheer or dance team or anything like that in high
No,
school.
no,
So
nope.
this started when you got to college and you got introduced to it. And talk about that because I think, going through the injuries that you went through, and let's talk about, maybe I should back up. Let me back up a little bit. Let's talk about those injuries in high school
Hmm.
because I think as coaches, sometimes I, anytime I see somebody get hurt that I've coached, I hate it and it sucks because it's like,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
that really sucks. And that goes for anything. For me, something that maybe can be relatable, especially if it's your senior year and you get injured because
Hmm.
you you want to finish your senior year, you want to be able to come out with your friends, go play that last game. And when you get
Exactly.
hurt, it's not only a physical injury, but mentally it affects you. And I can't speak for that. I'm fortunate and never having to deal with that. The closest thing I got to that, it was Kelly's senior year, which was COVID, and they season got just shut down. That's the closest thing I got to because there was like no closure. And I think for athletes sometimes, especially that get injured, especially if it's like their senior year, it's like I don't think maybe they don't get that closure. They didn't get that goal didn't happen. So for you having that goal of maybe wanting to play football after high school and that didn't happen,
Hmm.
what what were some of the challenges that you were facing? And maybe retrospect, looking back, that maybe what was it like at the time, like when you hurt your shoulder, and you're young. I think maybe the idea was, oh, I'll be able to rebound. But when you injured it again your sophomore year, what was your mindset, I guess, when you were in fifth grade versus your sophomore year when it
Fifth
came to
grade,
the
I
injury?
yeah, fifth grade, I felt like I had a lot more of a community kind of around me. Like all my teammates, my basketball teammates were like super. I don't know. I didn't. It was also like kind of the closer to the end of the season. The seasons quite weren't as long, and when I hurt my shoulder in football, it was like I think right in the middle of the season almost. And so it was just kind of an easier transition. And when I heard it in my sophomore year, I didn't really connect with a lot of the teammates that I was with at the time. And I didn't really feel like I had a good community behind me and support. And so I just kind of like, I'm going into my junior year. These guys don't even really like care or have like, didn't come over at all when I was, up in bed recovering or anything like that. And so I just didn't really, I just felt like I was kind of left behind in a way. And so I think from like a coach's perspective, wanting to kind of make sure that the teammate still feels involved and still feels like they're contributing to the team and not just standing on the sideline every game and practice and just kind of, oh, we're off to the side, not having to care about them at all.
Yeah, and I know that I might be guilty of that too because I've seen my fair share of injuries and stuff like that. I mean,
But yeah.
and kids breaking arms, breaking legs.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
happens. It's an unfortunate, evil thing that
Definitely. Yeah. It's a
happens.
very,
And
very
so
physical sport.
when it's a physical sport and it's going to happen, basketball, same thing. I've seen a lot of ankle injuries, stuff like that. I've seen a
Hmm.
lot, probably some like worse injuries on a basketball court just because that ground's not as forgiving. It's a hardwood
Right.
court. There's nothing really to absorb it. So I've seen, I've seen a kid like to have that short wall on the baseline and just put their leg up to try to brace themselves and they break their leg. Like it snaps right
Yeah.
there. And it's just like, what the
Yep.
heck? And
Yep.
so these freak things
Yep.
happen.
Yep.
And
Like those Kevin Ware injuries where he like just took a step back on the floor and his shin went right through his skin.
yeah,
It was, yeah, crazy
just
stuff on the basketball
craziness. And
court.
you're just, what the
Yeah.
heck? And
Yeah.
so, when I see stuff like that in, there was an article I read here that was talking about specialization in sports and the myth behind that. And one of the things that was brought up is that, this, if your kid's going to go to the next level, pro level, let's say, two things are going to happen. Your kid's talented. And the second one is that they're lucky enough to never get injured. And
Mm,
I,
mm,
that one, I'm like, wow, that's so true. I've seen a lot of really good athletes and they're running down the field. There was a kid I knew over here that great athlete running down the field on a kickoff or it was a kickoff return and snapped his ACL. It was a
oh, yeah.
he just his he just gave out on him. It was a freak
Uh-huh.
thing. Nobody made contact with him, and it just gave out. And you see that a lot of
That's
times,
what
and you see
sucks.
that happen at the professional level, even guys at
Mhm.
professional level that didn't have any issues, and then all of a sudden something freak happens, and then they get never the same. And and obviously fans and stuff from that are just like, well, that sucks, and just kind of blow it off
Mhm.
of that sucks. Well, that's, looking at try to be more empathetic towards that person who got injured because they poured everything into their life to be able to play that sport or do whatever. And
Mhm.
then something like that happens and they can never fully recover and get to do what they want to do. So I want to be able to, the kind of, I'm enjoying that you're telling us, everything that you've got going on. So, so as you finish your sophomore year, didn't really have that connection anymore. You kind
Mhm.
of felt,
Yeah.
I guess, alienated a little bit, maybe, or isolated, or
Yeah, definitely.
just kind of
Yeah,
like,
I actually ended up pretty much moving, like, I moved schools that year. I was, in Embler at the time, and then I moved to LeGrand afterwards. Just because I didn't really have a lot of friends out at the school I was going to, and so I had all my friends were in LeGrand, and so I just ended up connecting with them more,
that'd be the,
and
yeah.
yeah, I thought that would be the best.
Okay. Yeah. And sometimes sometimes that's the best thing to do.
Yeah,
You just
and
gotta
and
find a
and it
different
was it
perspective
was
and
good.
change.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely, like I'm thankful for it because it brought me to this point. I can't, like, look back and say that I'd wanna change anything about it.
Okay. All right. So let's move along here. Who or what were some of your influences that made you want to do sports? What were some of the things that, you know, gave you some kind of passion, at least early on to do sports, and then maybe into college where you decided that, hey, I wanted to be on stunt team.
Yeah, early on, definitely probably my parents, and then just seeing it in, like, movies, media, anything like that, that was just something I really gravitated towards when I was super young. I remember watching, UFC fights at a super early age and just falling in love with sport and, football too, watching football at your house and Uncle Chris as well, and just, getting exposed to the sport and, like, kinda enjoying the, like, the I don't essentially the challenge it gives you. Like, I started wrestling too. That was probably kind of the first time I experienced challenge was wrestling because I started wrestling and then I went undefeated for a super long time and then I lost to someone. And like that first loss was just kind of like earth shattering. Like I didn't want to wrestle after that. I was like, okay, this sucks. This feeling sucks. I don't want to lose again. Like it's just not a thing I want to feel. And so that taught me a lot moving forward into sport and then just kind of accepting that loss is just part of the process. And like you can't win every game. You can't win every match. There's just it's not possible or in the cards. And so yeah, from that point and then kind of what led me into getting into the stunt team is my previous ex-girlfriend was actually on the stunt team too. And so she said I should try out. And so I tried out and was able to get on it. And yeah, I learned a ton about weightlifting through that whole process too, because we got to work with all the organ trainers at like the Masovsky Center and then at the Mariota Center too. So that was just a super cool experience.
Yeah, because I can tell you right now, Oregon has probably one of the top programs when it
It's
comes to
yeah,
training,
it's awesome.
weightlifting programs. They
Yeah.
have an amazing
Hmm.
program. They got amazing staff.
Yeah.
Long time ago,
Yeah.
when I was in college, we actually had somebody from Oregon who was the strength coach, and he came and gave a seminar, and I got
Do
to
you
be
remember what his
fortunate to
name
watch.
was?
I can't remember his name. I can't. It was this was man. This he might still be there. This was probably back in the late '90s, late '90s when I saw him, and he might still be there. He was pretty
Okay.
well known, so
Gotcha.
quite possibly he's still there. So, anyways, just I can vouch for the what they got going on, and they got a top notch program when it comes to stuff like that. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
let's kind of talk a little bit about think about what was some of the moments that stand out for you. One or two or something that was anything in high school, middle school, college, as far as achievements in when you were in sports. What was something that kind of stands out for you?
Yeah. Probably uh Middle school wise, I would probably say just being able to travel around and play we played so much basketball, like, every weekend, we would probably play up to 8 games, and so just being able to play that much basketball was a ton of fun, and you're there with your friends, like, all weekend, and so that was just a blast being able to do that. Then high school, probably just going to the semifinals as a freshman. That whole year of football was so fun. The guys that we had on that team were amazing. They were so fun to play with. The seniors were amazing. They were really good leaders and just kinda just made it super fun all the time, and so, there was never really a dull moment at all. And then going into college, being at Oregon and just being able to be on the home games was a blast. Autzen is a has a atmosphere of its own, and, I was able to go. That was the year. So my freshman year was the year that Sabrina Ionescu was, playing at Oregon her junior or senior year.
Okay.
Because that was their senior year, and so that was the year they went to, the championships in Las Vegas and won the Pac-12 that year, and so that was got to go cheer for that too, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, so you got to go
And we
down to
go do
Vegas
that.
to that. That was fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it was super cool. Yeah, it was a fun experience. And then, probably later college, I would probably say the marathons. My last marathon was probably a good highlight. That one was a fun training process, and then I don't know about fun, but challenging and very, rewarding experience afterwards, completing it at a
I
pretty good
can
pace too.
I can tell you that I did find a this is a while ago, and it still might be up if you look it up, but if you look up Oregon Ducks and Pour Sugar on Me from the
Uh-huh.
Def Leppard song,
Okay.
there's a spot and you're carrying the Oregon Duck in there along with some of
That's
your
funny.
stunt team, and he's throwing the sugar. Do you remember getting the sugar dumped on you?
Yes, yes. Oh,
And I
yeah,
remember
yeah, that
seeing
was
you just
awful.
like you just all of a sudden, and I'm sure it
Ugh.
was sweating and sticky and
Oh, dude, it was so sticky afterwards. Yeah, and that was, like, I think either halftime or, like, pretty early in the game, and
so you still
so the
had
rest of the
all
game, we're
kinds of
just
stuff.
yeah. Yeah, we had sugar all over us. Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah, a good time.
So let's talk about the training and stuff like that is that you kind of went through, especially at college, because
Yeah.
let's get into that a little bit because I think as you got older, obviously being more getting to understand how training works, how your body works, how do you, recovery and all this stuff,
Mhm.
you get to learn that. And when you had an advantage like you did at Oregon, where you could be around those trainers and stuff, I'm sure there was a wealth of knowledge they were able to give you. So let's talk about training. When you got there, what was it like? What was shocking about when you got there to be on the stunt team? Like, oh, I'm going to try for the stunt team. And then what were practices like for you guys?
Yeah, so we got there, I think 2 or maybe even almost 4 weeks before the first home game. And so we get there and then we get like lined out with our gear, all of that fun stuff, and then kind of the hard stuff begins. And so we'd start practice. I want to say we had morning weights at 6:30, and then we'd have throw practice at like probably we'd get I think around maybe we'd have it at noon and then have another one uh, probably around 5 or 6, just depending on the day and how like we're performing. So weights in the beginning, pretty much the goal was is to get as strong as you could get before you like uh, the games would start. And so we were progressively overloading very quickly. I was eating easily 4,000 plus calories a day, just pounding the food, like just eating pretty much go to eat breakfast, go to practice, eat, go to practice, eat, and just did that. And so that's got pretty big pretty quickly during that whole process. And then kind of once uh, school started, along with the games and whatnot, we would have practice at 5:30 in the morning, and that would go till 8:30. And then usually in like after practice, we would do recovery. So we just did a lot of heat cold contrast a lot of the time. So that in the facilities, they got a hot tub and a cold plunge, and so we'd go in there and kind of do. They had like a protocol on the wall that you would follow.
Okay,
Hmm.
nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So that, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, you get to experience being on the field without
Yeah.
actually going out and dressing out. I mean, obviously,
Hmm.
I mean, playing football would be really cool. Um, did you were you able to form any relationships with any of what were what were some of the dealing with the different sports you had? But I don't want you to need to be calling out anybody. I don't want you to
No,
be
yeah.
uncomfortable. Looking at the different sports that you guys did your stunt team routine cheers for,
Hmm.
between football, boys and girls basketball, right? Is there anything else you guys did cheering for? What was it? Just those three sports mainly?
No, yeah, mainly just those three. I think one time we did I think the cheer girls might have did a soccer game, like towards the playoff side. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah,
What were
I
some?
think those ones. Yeah.
So going to that school and being part of that college atmosphere. Who were the coolest cats to hang out with?
Coolest cast. The way it kind of worked was everyone was kind of in their own sport. And like, because you spent so much time with your people,
Right.
that was kind of your group that you would
That
hang
was your
out with.
group.
So
Yeah.
that was your group. So football guys did football guys stuff, and then basketball guys did basketball guys stuff. I mean, occasionally you'd go into and get invited to these parties and whatnot, and there'd be a mix of all the athletes. But yeah, no, it was mainly just kind of secluded off into sections, and a lot of the time, I mean, it hit also. My second year hit was COVID, and so that kind of put a big stump into things, and so we kind of became the way we kind of our coaches like to look at our team was we're kind of Oregon ambassadors. So we'd be the ones kind of representing the school and kind of just, being an Oregon athlete, but not necessarily playing a sport. And so our job was kind of just to represent Oregon the best way that we could. Hmm.
Good way to
Hmm.
look at it. Good way to approach
Yeah.
it. And especially for
Yeah.
sports, for all the sports, and there's a reason why Oregon, I hate to say it's one of the top, athletic workers. He knows that
Yeah. It's
there is a joke in our family because I've always liked Oregon State, and I have. And it goes back to because our uncle went there. That's where he graduated from, and his frat brothers were football players,
okay.
and so that's who
Right
he
on.
hung out with. So like when Oregon State beat USC, that was like one of the big steps in football because OJ Simpson was the running back and
That's
at
crazy.
USC, and
Yeah.
that was
Dang.
like
Dang.
they were one of the top teams in the nation, and then Oregon State beat them like something crazy, like 3-0. It was something nuts like that because
Dang.
I
That's
remember my dad,
crazy.
your grandpa talking about it, and it was
Yeah.
basically Grandpa Ed, it was Uncle Tom, and then your great grandma, and I think that might
Mhm.
have been all there, but Uncle Tom got tickets to the game, but he got it on the visitor side. So out of all the places he could be in the stadium, the tickets he got were around all these
That's
USC
funny.
fans. And so anytime something happened good for Oregon State, he would give him cheer because he do a lot of guys on the team cheering, and he's getting take people out, sit down, booing at him. Lo and behold, your uncle and grandpa and grandma got into a fist fight with the fans.
My gosh, that's
So
crazy. Oh my
yeah, and
gosh.
that story grandpa had would share, and I was like, wow, okay, that's nuts. So I've always kind of been an Oregon State fan, and then your mom went to Oregon State for a year, and so
Right,
I was like,
right,
all right,
yeah.
keeping that tradition, and then she went to Oregon, and then the running joke was I remember going like Christmas time going to your guys' house and having dinner and stuff like that. And then I remember your mom saying like, hey, what do you want for drink? And I was like, I'll give you some water or whatever. And she would purposely get a cup, fill it with water with an Oregon cup and give it to me. And so I was like,
That's
really? So
funny.
I'd always give her crap.
Yeah, that's funny. That's
But
funny.
I can say though that,
Yes, go Ducks.
yeah, go Ducks. I get it. And what cracked me up though is at your wedding, your cousin, our cousin was rolling around with an Oregon State shirt. And I just kind of look at him like,
No.
oh, okay.
I know, yeah.
You got a lot of cojones going in this.
Yeah,
Not in him not knowing, I kind
yeah,
of joked with him. I go, you realize where you're at right now? So
yeah,
you got a
you're in
bunch of
Oregon
Oregon
territory.
lumber
Yeah, yeah,
running around the property right now.
that's funny, that's funny.
So yeah. So yeah, let's kind of move on here. So we talked about you know, being at the Oregon games, being at the football games, being at the basketball games. Let's talk about kind of how you push through the injury. So we talked
Hmm.
about your shoulder injury. I believe was it your rotator cuff that they had to repair on one of them?
So yeah, that was my right one. My right
That
one when
was the
I
right one.
hit that one in jujitsu. Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was the rotator cuff.
yeah.
No, no, that was my labrum. I haven't
That was
had
your
any
labrum.
rotator cuff issues. Yeah. So my left one was it was just I think because I was just such a lanky and skinny kid when I was younger.
Mhm.
The way the surgeon explained to me that everything was just so stretched that it couldn't support the joint. And so I could just easily just pop it out.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was
Um,
nuts. It was gross.
so looking back at this, did the injury shape? How did it shape? How does the injuries that you had happen? How did it shape your outlook on sports in your life after the fact? Kind of a retrospect, looking back at.
Looking back at it, I feel like it's just kind of made me more resilient towards, which is ironic to say because I didn't go back to playing sports, but like, I don't know, like learning how to go through a recovery process, I think is really important as an athlete and wanting to, because like eventually at some point, no matter what you're pro, whoever, like you're eventually going to stop playing that sport at some point. And so knowing how your body needs to recover afterwards, I think is super important. Kind of keeping that in the back of your mind is an important factor that I never really had like in high school. I just thought, like I'll be fine. I'm young. I'll figure it out. It'll be okay. But that's eventually just going to catch up to you. So keeping that in mind in the back of your head the whole time is, recovery is just as important as performance.
Yeah, so this is something we had talked about a few weeks ago when I was talking to Andrew and Coach T. That was something that was brought up was the fact that the education that's kind of lacking, I think, right now with younger with coaching. One of the things I think we can do better out is not just proper training, but recovery. Because I think a lot of times there's a stigma, and some of the stigma we were talking about, and that if you listened to the episode a couple weeks ago, it was we were talking about the stigma behind that.
Hmm.
That if you get hurt, and it's like if you go to the trainer to get looked at, it was always seemed like, oh, you're such a pussy. Why you not tough enough to go and so there was always that mindset where if people were educated enough and kind of understood that process that no, take care of it now, and in the long run, it's going to help you, and I
Definitely.
think that stigma is there. And I truly think that's where coaches need to get better at is, you know, how we look at injuries, try to be educated a little bit more about it, because sports medicine has changed so much
Hmm.
over the past 10 years, like 5, 10 years, like how you take care of sprains now has changed. It's not just ice. It's, there's different ways you handle it. You don't, how you want to approach just doing something like sprains.
Hmm.
So, and then, when you get into college, some colleges have better training facilities and stuff versus others. And that was something that was brought up too, was, some of the smaller colleges don't really have the facilities for rehab versus bigger colleges like Oregon does. So yeah,
Right.
I think the education part and that getting rid of that stigma, I think plays a huge part of that too.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if you could go back and tell your younger self, or what would be some of the things you would tell your younger, time machine, go
I
back and you
would
could just slap them in the face and say, hey, this is what you need to do.
I would definitely tell them to start lifting weights and just getting putting on muscle as early as you can. Like just and working on doing the little things too, like working on accessory movements, thinking about strengthening the smaller muscles too. And flexibility is huge. Flexibility helps so much in everything. Like if you're a flexible person, it helps a
Yes,
lot. Yeah.
absolutely.
It can help reduce injury a lot. And so making sure, excuse me, that you're not just staying. I mean, there's times you need to stay stagnant and just recover and chill. And I think finding the balance in between that is something that can be super difficult to find, especially because I'm a pretty high agency person. So trying to find the balance of yeah, I need to kind of maybe not go for a run a day and just kind of chill out and let my body recover, and will get me further than instead of pushing myself and getting injured again.
Yeah. So that discipline of self-awareness and understanding your body,
Yeah,
listening to your body, I think sometimes too. And because I think on the other flip side of that, you got people that are so obsessed with working out and stuff like
yeah,
that that they don't take those breaks, and their body just breaks down even more because they're not given a chance to rest. And that's happens, I think, sometimes. And that we
yeah,
talked about that too also in sports, how when you start going specialized or you're playing the same sport year round and how it just breaks down your body. We've always talked about, even the pros have breaks. And so how the
exactly.
importance of the understanding to give your time rest. That doesn't mean just go sit down and just start eating pizza and,
Yeah,
burgers and
no,
stuff. That
no,
means,
no, you should.
obviously how you approach training, but still you're giving that body rest so it can recover, so it can have that time to recover. So I think that
Yeah,
education is huge and, you know,
definitely.
is important. From your perspective, how do you think injuries impact differently, let's say at the high school level versus the college level? Because you can vouch for both because you've kind of been at the college level
Yeah.
versus high school.
So I mean, I wouldn't say I have much experience at the college level because my injury was kind of outside of cheers or the stunt team stuff. But high school, like, I would say that just my mindset was definitely different going into it. I had I felt like more of a community around me. Just kind of circling back to that when I had my shoulder surgery when I was in college compared to when I was in high school. I just felt super alone when I was in high school and didn't have a lot of people I could count on. And so it was just kind of like a very lonely period of my life and trying to get through a recovery. But when I did my shoulder, I had way better access to a physical therapist as well. The ones I have in Eugene are fantastic. I went to Tensegrity Physical Therapy in Eugene, and they were amazing to work with. Super knowledgeable people, and I felt like I got a lot better. And that's just, I mean, I was in LeGrand, so there's just not a lot of. It's just a small town, so it's just kind of the limitations of being in a small town compared to a city, and especially a city that has college athletes everywhere. So it's just kind of the situation that I was in at the time.
Okay, so what do you think schools and coaches, teammates, could do better to support injured players, especially mentally? It sucks having them that not on your team, and you don't have that player that might have helped you get over the top, or you don't have that player, but the mental part of that, I think that kind of gets left behind. What do you think coaches, schools, and teammates can do to better support their athletes mentally? What would be something you would say that advice you would give to a coach or, you know, players, when one of their teammates gets hurt or one of their players gets hurt?
Definitely just trying to include the injured teammate and everything as much as you can. Whether that's you guys do a team dinner night or do anything team related, just keeping it like they're still involved and a part of the team. Still, I mean, even if they're like in a quarterback position or something like that, and getting their input on a play or just keeping them involved in the plays and kind of asking them questions along, like what would you do here? Why would you do that? Obviously, I'm not a coach, so I don't know like kind of the aspects on how that part would work. But I think the biggest thing just keeping them included, and then trying to find ways. Like I felt like a lot of benefit when I could still find some way to be active, whether that's so like my shoulder surgeries. As soon as I was out of either my I was actually probably as soon as I got it cleared basically from my physical therapist that I could get in the gym, which I think was right around 6 weeks, I was in the gym hitting legs probably 3 times a week. Just I had to be doing something to just kind of keep my mind going. And so finding some way to keep that athlete active as well, I think will definitely help the recovery process. And whether that's even it could just be easy as just walking and going, getting your 10,000 steps for the day or however much you need to get in. But yeah, I'd say biggest thing, just keep them included. Don't let them kind of fade out to the back and just sit on the sidelines.
Okay. Well, hey, I think that's some great advice. And, I think, you being able to share your story like this is hopefully will be helpful to other people. And,
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
know,
hope so.
yeah. And so I appreciate you taking your time to be able to talk about your journey and stuff like that. And, you're always going to be welcome to come back on the show anytime you want. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah. And then one more
be,
thing I want to add
okay,
too.
go ahead.
Uh, a big thing that I realized in high school is like getting rid of the ego lifting and not like I don't think that's as big of a deal as like for a college athlete because they're gonna have that
They're all, they're
trainer
all
with
there.
them all the
Yeah.
time. They're all yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's you're gonna but like when you're super young in high school and stuff, I think like you're wanting to try and impress your friends of like ego lifting and just look, I can bench 225 and you end up tearing your rotator cuff. It's like, wow, that was for nothing. It did not matter at all. So making sure you're not doing any of those ego lifts is important too.
Funny side story. And we talked about this 3 weeks ago. So Andrew, who's the center for the Blizzard, he was talking about lifting, and he just kind of nonchalantly just dropped, hey, I shrugged, you know, reps of 12 of 585 pounds. And I'm
That's
just like,
crazy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's just nonchalantly talking about shrugging
Yeah. Yeah.
585.
Yeah.
And me and Coach Tier just looking at you going, he just like nonchalantly just dropped
Yeah.
that he does it. But, for his profession and what he's having to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
obviously part of the game. But
That's
he
yeah.
brought that up.
He's
So
built
I was
he's
just
built
like,
up to that.
oh, he's built up to that. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's gone through the training and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
all right. Anything else you want to get out there to people before we move on
I
to our
don't
next
I
segment?
don't think so. I think yeah, just finding something that makes you want to get up every morning. I think is important. Whatever that may be. Just pursue that.
Okay. All right. Well, you're going to be a part of the next segment we do. Every week we do a unusual mascot of the week
Okay.
or the episode.
Okay.
And it's usually been high school. We have done a little bit of a minor league baseball because there's some crazy names out there, but we are doing high school.
Nice.
So we're taking you to Anik, Alaska. All right. And it's Anik, Alaska is a small town, about 507 people,
Okay.
571 people, not very big. Native population in this area. Talking about, cost of living in Alaska, obviously expensive. It's 133%
hmm
higher, to live there just because you're in Alaska. And local economy,
Crazy.
small service hub village with employment concentrated on public administration, education, resources, mining related uh, industries, oil, gas. It's kind of an area not too far from oil and gas for there.
hmm
Closest big city, Anchorage, Alaska. It is west of Anchorage. Location, it's 317 miles exactly west of Alaska or Anchorage. So
Okay.
the mascot. Originally, the mascot was the apostles for the boys and the angels for the girls. And this place has a lot of Yupik tribe Eskimos, and then you have non-native families that live up there too as well. So in 1970s, students in the late 70s wanted to reflect their community's mixed heritage, and they had changed their name to half breeds. That is their mascot. They are the
That's
Anik
crazy.
half breeds. Yes.
That's crazy.
So
Oh my god.
yeah, it's a small school, grade 6. So grade 6 through 12 enrollment, there are like 55 kids. So it's a small school. It's really tiny.
Yeah.
Notable things though that this school has done: girls basketball team won the state championship in 1988 or excuse me 2018. They won the 1A state championship. Previous banner, apparently they did it in 1999. Boys basketball 2023 were the state
Nice.
runners up, and a mixed six volleyball took third place at the Alaska State Tournament in 2022. There has been somewhat notable famous person come from there. Richie Deal was an itinerant usher that has done pretty well for himself. So yeah, the half breeds.
The hybrids.
That's your unusual mascot of the week. So I'd like to thank, yeah. So I'd like to thank Jeff for joining me, and just like to tell everybody else I appreciate everybody who's been listening, going all the way back east to the locally, and Washington, California, and where everywhere in between. Internationally, the been picked up in England and India, and appreciate it. So
Nice.
anyway, so I appreciate everybody listening, and we're gonna say goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man. That's it.